Relationships ain't easy, and unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to change that, but you can enjoy them more. And if you approach them the right way, they can be more than worth it. So I'm John Sanders. I'm a husband, father, brother, sharing the mistakes and successes that I've made in my own relationships so I can help you with yours. If you're single, struggling to get a date, or if you're married and you feel like you're a million miles away from the spouse that's sitting right next to you, I got something that's going to help you. We're going to have fun, you're going to laugh, but most importantly, you're going to learn something that's going to help you take your relationship to the next level. Or if you don't have a relationship, you'll learn something to help you get one. Let's jump into the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining again. Today we are on our final step to our step-by-step dating. We're on the engagement stage. So we're almost there, almost married, the engagement step. But just understand, you're not at the finish line yet. There's still some work to do. So let's get into this. So first of all, I just want to remind you the different steps. So you start off with friendship, you move into dating, then things get official. You start having titles and names. And then the step we're on today, engagement. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to define what engagement is. Now there's certain conversations you need to be having when you're engaged. Remember, this is the last step before marriage. If you want to cancel the relationship after this, it's got to be a messy divorce. So you want to make sure that you know this is the person. Then we're going to talk about planning the wedding. You heard me right, planning the wedding. Never thought I'd talk about this, but I know it's going to be helpful for you. So let's jump in. Defining engagement. I did a quick Google search, and this is what I came up with. An engagement to marry is a bilateral contract between two people whereby they mutually promise to marry one another. So that was the legal term of engagement. Another definition was an engagement or betrothal, however you want to say it, tomato, is a period of time between a marriage proposal and the marriage itself. So, that's self-explanatory. But this is how I explain it. You have officially stated and agreed that you both want to get married into each other. I had to clarify that because you could both want to get married, and that means you both want to get married to each other. So I'm going to give the men some advice here. This is something that my wife told me before I even proposed. She would always tell me, don't ask the question unless you are sure of the answer. And obviously that question was, will you marry me? Basically asking her to say yes, presenting a ring, etc. And so I'll say there's a lot of truth to that. And the way I took it was, you guys should have had enough conversations during the official stage that you know when it's a good time to ask to be married. And we talked about this in our last podcast, where we said there's certain things you need to be talking about. One of the things was, when do you think you'll be married? When do you think you'll be ready for marriage? So I gave the example that, let's say you guys are both in college and one of you decides, I don't want to be married until I at least have my bachelor's degree. So when my wife says, don't ask the question unless you are sure of the answer, in that scenario, that would mean you shouldn't ask her before graduation, because you'll know the answer is going to be no. So just make sure you're you know the answer before you ask. For me, and my wife asked me after I asked her, so I would say I was 95% sure she was going to say yes. I mean, I guess there's always a thought that they could say no, but I knew the timing was right. Like I knew all these certain steps had happened. Like I had a job. We had talked things through. I talked to God about everything, so I felt like I had to go ahead in that area. So it was the right time to ask. So men, make sure you know the answer before you ask the question. Sorry, don't ask the question unless you are sure of the answer. There we go. I don't want my wife get mad at me for ruining that. So, we talked about that there were conversations that you need to be having when you're engaged. And these, the ones I'm going to tell you, are the most important, the ones that are going to have the biggest effect on your marriage and your life in the future. So you need to make sure you have these. There's other ones, but these are the ones you definitely need to have. So money, your home, and family. So let's start with money first. You need to understand that now that you guys are engaged, me is becoming we, and mine is becoming ours. You're no longer just single. Now you got to start thinking of yourself as a couple and a future family. So me becomes we, and mine becomes ours. So with money, you need to know how you guys are going to share your money. I mean, me personally, what's mine is hers, and what's hers is mine. And that's something that we agreed to before, and we talked about and we understood. So we have our joint accounts. We share all of our money. If something were to happen to me or happen to her, we have things in place to help them. The person who's left over are still here, help them out financially. So we share all of our money and everything. But you need to talk about that because that's a big issue. Not everyone wants to share or feels like they have to share. And I know there's some situations where maybe the person that you're marrying is a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or something. Or maybe they were a trust fund baby. And so for them, they want to make sure that they have someone love them for them and not the money that they could get if they married them. So whatever the reason may be, you need to talk about it, figure out how you're going to share, and then you need to make sure that you're okay with that. Because you can't force them to change how they want to do things. Now, you can obviously voice your opinion, explain why you see things differently, but ultimately, you want someone who agrees with you, not someone you have to force to agree with you, because you can't force them forever, and it'll come back up in your marriage. Some other things to keep in mind with money. How much debt do you both have? So me and my wife were sharing all of our money. That included the debt. It's the part we didn't want, but that included it. I would say me and my wife had about the same amount of debt when we got married, and it was mostly just student loans. Thank God, Angeline and I were both very responsible with our money, and so we didn't have a lot of ridiculous debt. It wasn't credit cards or car loans and stuff like that. It was mostly just student loans. So when we got married, our debt doubled. But we knew about that going in, so it was okay. So some of the things you want to know is, what is the debt that you have? Is it a student loan? Or is it credit card debt? Is it car loans? Is it a mortgage? You want to know the type of debt because it'll help you understand how your future spouse handles money. If it's a student loan, maybe a mortgage, it's probably a reasonable debt. They're probably still being responsible, trying to get a house, trying to get an education. And so they got loans. So that's okay. Now, stuff like credit card loans, if they say they have a lot of that, you need to figure out why. What did you purchase? Are you just buying TVs, cell phones, all kind of electronics, just random things that you don't really need, but you want, and you can't wait to get them? So you buy them with credit and get in debt? You need to know that, because that's going to affect you in your marriage. Now, sometimes people have to use credit cards for emergencies. They have some hard times financially. If that's the case, you need to know that. Another thing that most people don't think about, but is the ring. So normally the guy buys the rings. I know for me, I bought my ring and Angeline's ring. But I know a lot of times the woman will buy the men their ring and vice versa. So something that a lot of people don't think about is and this is more geared towards the women, but men you need to listen to. So a lot of women want this huge, elaborate diamond. There's nothing wrong with wanting it, but you have to understand there's a cost. So if you marry someone who's not a millionaire and you want like a $30,000 ring, you're probably asking for too much. And if they get it, you have to understand that your future husband is going to get it using credit, which means once you guys get married, you guys will both be paying off that ring that you bought. So I know some people I've talked with that was okay with them. I know other people were upset because they got surprised all of a sudden when they're married. What, I got to help pay for this? Because in their mind, they were thinking this should just be a gift that the man paid for beforehand. So you guys need to talk about that. Another thing with money, how do you budget? You need to be asking this. And then how do you see them budgeting once you're married? Are we going to do it together? Will it be one person? How are we going to do it? This is also a question you should be asking in the official stage, and it should mostly be, how do you budget? And then once you get engaged, it should be, how will we budget? Or what are our expectations? Because we all come from different households. They have different cultures, different values. And so some households, the dad maybe did it. Some households, the mom maybe did it. And so without us even knowing, we kind of grew up thinking this is the way. And so we have these expectations. And so we need to make sure we voice those expectations. And then because it's no longer, you can't just keep doing things the way your family did it. Now you have to start figuring out, how is our family going to do it? What's the best way for us? Maybe your dad did it in your house, but man, maybe you're horrible at numbers. That's not your gift. But maybe your wife is a whiz with number. She loves spreadsheets, etc. It may be best that she does a lot of the budgeting, just because that's what's best in your family. Or maybe you both have no clue about budgeting, so you both need to do it together to help each other. Whatever. You just need to figure out what that is, and you need to know beforehand, because your spouse is going to have these expectations. So if you at least know beforehand, you can have a plan to try to work through it. One of the biggest things that can cause issues or arguments in a marriage is expectations that weren't communicated, and then one spouse gets upset because the other spouse is not meeting their expectations, and then that spouse is upset because the other spouse has expectations of them that were never communicated. So I'm trying to help you out here. So home, Questions about the home. So when I say this, I mean chores. Are you going to buy a house? Are you going to rent a house? Where do you want to live? Do you guys want to stay in the same city you're at? A lot of times people graduate, they get married. Are you going to stay in the city where the university was? You're moving back to his hometown, her hometown, someplace different. You need to talk about that because people have strong feelings about this. Some people love traveling, going to new places. It's exciting to them. Some people like to be someplace for long periods of times and feel like they're connected to community. So you need to know beforehand, if I say yes to you or if I propose to you, am I okay with the living arrangements, where we're going to live? Buying or renting, I said that already, but that's because you want to know. And that kind of goes in the budget because your budget's going to dictate if you can buy or rent. So you need to know that. Another huge thing is chores. And not just who does what, but even how you do what you do. I know me and my wife had some arguments. And by the way, I need to just pause real quick. Instead of calling them arguments, I like calling them opportunities for growth. So let's just say me and my wife had plenty of opportunities to growth, and it was over stupid stuff. It was how you load the dishwasher. Now, I believe you should, if it's something that can stick you or cut you like a knife or a fork, you should point it down in the dishwasher. My wife thinks if it gets in the dishwasher, it's a win. So we had to figure out that and navigate that. But that is part of the home. You guys are living together now. Your decisions on how you do stuff, when you do stuff, if you do it or don't do it, affects each other, affects the family. So the more that you can figure out beforehand, the better. Another thing you might want to figure out is whose furniture is staying and whose furniture is going. A lot of times, both of you have your own places, your own apartments, whatever. So now you got to combine. How are you going to do that? Are you guys going to buy all new furniture? Is that what one person is expecting? You're going to keep, is the woman going to keep her furniture and all the bachelor pad furniture is going to get thrown away? Because that's usually what happens. But you just need to know. So when it comes to the home, it's just chores. Where do you want to live? And what roles do you expect your spouse to fulfill? And what roles do they expect you to fulfill? Who's going to take care of the yard? Who's going to call the insurance company if there's a issue with the house? Who's going to clean the bathrooms? Etc. Who's going to get the groceries? It's just good for you to talk this out beforehand. Because if someone's just dead set on, well, hey, I think you need to be doing X, Y, Z, and you're dead set on, well, it shouldn't all be on me. Well, you guys need to figure that out before you get married. So let's move on to family. So family can include kids, the in-laws, or even how you guys interact with each other. So good questions to ask are, what type of family do we want to be? Like I said earlier, you both grew up in different families. You guys had different values in those families, and you learned that from your parents. But I'm sure there's things you loved and there's things you didn't like. And so you're going to have certain expectations of, I want my family to be like this. So you guys should sit down and figure out, well, what values do we want to define our family? A good thing is like, what do we want our home to feel like? Do we want it to be peaceful, stress-free? Some people like it to be the hub of excitement. They want to have lots of parties all the time and invite people over. So you just need to know, because not everyone likes having people over all the time. And some people hate never having people over. So you just need to figure that out. Kids. Kids. This is a big one. Do you want kids? And actually, you should already know that in the official step, if they even want kids. But how many? When do you want them? Like how soon? Obviously for women, there is a time limit. I believe it's if you're over 35, that doctors consider you at risk if you get pregnant. It doesn't mean you can't, but I'm just saying what doctors say. So based off of that and how old she is, you may need to have your kids quickly. Or if you guys get married young, then you have more time, but you need to figure out when that is. And sometimes people want to finish certain goals. So someone may want their master's or their doctorate degree first. So you just need to talk that out and see how it's going to work for the two of you. Another huge thing you should talk about: how will you discipline your kids? Some people take the approach of spanking. Some people hate spanking. Some people say, oh, just, let them touch the stove. Let them run into stuff, after they beat themselves up, they'll learn everything. And some people are helicopter parents, but you guys need to figure that out. I would say probably 9 out of 10 times you guys can work things out, figure out a way that works for you two. There might be slight compromise on both ends, but it's good. But there's some people who, they never talked about this, and when they get married, they actually get divorced over things like this. So you want to make sure the person you're about to marry is at least somewhere around the same page that you're on. Another big thing is, one of you stay home with the kids, or you ship them off to daycare. And there's not a right or wrong. It depends on what you need for your family. So some households, they need both families. They need both spouses to work. They both need to have a full-time job, and that's what they need to make it. And so if it is, then yeah, you're going to have to do daycare. Or some cultures, the grandparents are around, so the grandparents stay and watch, our aunts, uncles, whatever. But you need to know what the expectations are, because some men expect the mom to stay home because their mom stayed home, or even some women expect the men to do all the work. Well, not all the work, but they expect them to bring in all the money so they can stay home because that's how it was at their house. Or some other people, it's opposite. Hey, no, we're both going to work, and our kids will have to go to daycare. So figure that out. Inlaws. You're not just marrying your boyfriend or girlfriend, your fiance. You are also marrying into their family. And so you will be not only forever connected to the person you're marrying, but you're also forever connected to their family. So in-laws, when I talk about in-laws, it's mostly about how to deal with interactions between them and your spouse. And it's mostly setting boundaries with them. Some in-laws are great about saying, this is their family, this is their marriage. We'll be here if they want advice, but we're going to be hands off with it. There's other people who feel like they need to tell them what to do all the time, no matter what they're doing, and have critiques for it. And I'll say something to the men right now. If your mom is constantly pointing out deficiencies and pointing out things that your wife, that she thinks is doing wrong, and saying, well, why aren't you cooking like this? Why aren't you doing this for the kids, et cetera, et cetera? You need to have a talk with your mom. It's not up to your wife to do this. You need to have a talk with your mom. So I would first say, talk to your wife, Ask her how that makes her feel. Now, like most wives, she's probably already told you how she feels, and you already know what you need to say. So you just need to have a talk with your mom. Mom, I love you, but this is my wife. If you have those issues, talk to me about it first, and then I'll let you know if you can talk to her. But you and your wife need to have a certain boundary saying, hey, we're agreeing to raise our kids this way. That's what we talked about earlier. I said you need to talk about things. We chose to raise our kids this way. These are the values we want our kids to have. So we appreciate your feedback, but we're going to raise our kids this way, and we would appreciate it if you would help us. So, men, that's on you. Now, I also say it can be vice versa. It could be the mom's in-laws, and it's usually going to be the mom's dad talking about the husband and what he should be doing. So, same thing. Women, if you're a dad or a mom is talking about your husband, you need to talk to them and set that straight. Okay, now the fun part, planning for the wedding. I know for me, before I actually got into planning for the wedding, I thought for some crazy reason that it was going to be exciting, fun, and romantic to try to, on a budget together in a short amount of time, blend families, friends, opinions, and try to come up with a wedding that pleases both of us. I don't know why I thought that was going to be amazing. It is stressful. It's so stressful. But I will say, if you do it right, you'll learn a lot before you guys get married, and you will enjoy your wedding day. So it may not be easy, but it'll be worth it if you do it right. So just here's a few things to think. And I want you to look at it as a process that'll test you and your fiance's ability to solve problems and work together. I want you to look at it that, because it is condensed and there is a lot to do. So I'm just going to name off some things. You both have to pick out a venue and agree on it. You got to find a photographer or photographers. Do you want videographers? You got to get DJ, catering. You got to get tables. You got to get chairs. You need to know about decorations. You got to find a cake. You got to get a pastor. Then there's always wedding party drama. Then you got to figure out who to invite. You got to create a gift registry together. Where will the honeymoon be? There's a lot. And all these things, guess what? Have a price tag on them. And you have a certain budget. And she also wants to have a dress. The dress may come out the budget too. So these are all the fun things you get to go through. And who to invite is a big one, because you're on a budget. So this means someone who wants to be invited will have to be told no. And I had to do this, and it was tough. I think I could have handled it better. But I had to say no. We only had so many seats. And I think what we were doing for the food, we were getting a discount. It was like $75 a plate. So we were like, yeah, we only have so much room. And my wife's Latina, so she has a huge family. And so we're trying to figure this all out, and it's tough. The gift registry part, you would think, hey, that's going to be fun. We're just doing gifts. No. Especially if you're like me, you don't like shopping, because so now you're either sitting in front of a screen, or you're spending your Saturday going to these different stores, and you're not like getting things that you like. At least it wasn't for me. It was things for the house. It was things to cook with. It was decoration. It's tough. And you got to figure this out. You got to come together and agree on stuff, because, I don't know. You may have slightly different styles. And again, you got to figure out what's our new style. Let me just tell you a little story about something me and Angelique. And this is this is a good example of what it's like during this process. So we're picking out cakes. First of all, I like this amazing local place that make cupcakes, and they make cakes. I'm not a big sweets person. I normally don't like cupcakes. This person's cupcakes are amazing. I don't know what they do, but the icing is all airy and light, and it's like not too sweet. It's like just perfect. The cake, you bite into it, and it's just like, ooh, I don't know. It's like heavenly angels come down and start singing around you. It's amazing. But Angeline doesn't love it. She eats it. So we had to figure out what we're going to do with the cake, because there was two different places. And I was like, well, this is my big day. I want to go where I want to go. She want to do her thing. So we settled on she was going to have the cake on the wedding day from where she wanted. And then for the wedding rehearsal, I was going to have my cake. And so that worked out. And I was cool with that. But anyway, when we had to go to the place where the cake was going to be made for the wedding. And what you have to do, this is another thing, is so fun. So you schedule some time on your weekend, and you talk to like a cake consultant. I don't even know what they were called. And they flip through the books to show you all the stuff they can do, and then you try to figure out what you want. I am normally easy to get along with. Me and the cake consultant almost got into it because I was starting to feel insulted by what she was saying. And let me explain to you why. This was my first time seeing my wife go through a decision like this. So I was reading things wrong. My wife was asking me questions, and she was asking her questions. And I thought that the cake consultant was trying to push her to do something she didn't want. So I was getting upset because I was getting protective. And so apparently that's not what was going on. After the incident, after we left, I asked her, I said, what was going on? And she was saying that she was actually agreeing with the cake lady. And so I was like, well, you asked me, I can't remember what the question was, but it was like a specific question. And I was giving her exactly what I wanted, thinking what she wanted. And it finally clicked. I don't know, God was told me, or I finally got some wisdom, whatever. And I was like, do you just want me to be here just to make sure you don't make a horrible mistake? But you really want to make all of these decisions? And that's what it was. So then I told her, I was like, okay, I'll just come along with you on these things if you want. I'm going to give my opinion, and it's up to you to take it or not. The only time that I'm going to really get upset is if it's something that I really just don't want, or is really going to, like, it's something that, like, this wedding has to be like this. But everything else, I'll let it go, and I'll let you do it your way. And so that helped us out a lot another way. And then I also told her, if you think we go someplace where you don't want my opinion, please don't invite me. If you can invite a friend or somebody, invite them. If you want me to come, I'll come and do my best, but it's probably best if you invite a friend. And so that's what worked out for us. I'm not going to say it's worked out for everybody, but for our personalities and where we were at that time, that was the best thing we could come up with. So planning your wedding is going to be fun, but it's going to be a test to see how you guys solve problems and work together. So you're at the engagement stage. We've defined engagement. Me turns into we. Mine turns into ours. You've promised to marry each other, but you haven't crossed that finish line just yet. Remember, you need to figure out all you can right now, because you can call it off now, and you don't have to go through a messy divorce. You don't have to get a divorce lawyer. You don't have to worry about them taking some of your money, etc. There's no kids involved if you've done everything by my steps. So we talked about conversations you need to have over your money, your home, your family, How will the two of you share your money? And how will you manage it? You figure out where you're going to live. You're going to live in a house, apartment, condo. You're going to rent, own. How are you going to split the chores? Who's taking care of what? What type of family will we be? What will our values be that shape us? Kids, how are we going to raise them? How many do we have? How quickly do we have them? You need to know that. Planning the wedding. Let's get ready to rumble. Yeah, so planning the wedding. You have to figure out how to get all your family together in one place within budget in a short time with close friends without losing your mind and giving up. So good luck. But no, I can do it. It's going to be challenging. It's going to test how you and your fiance problem solve and work together. But if you do it right, you'll enjoy the wedding day and you'll learn a lot about each other. So, hey, that's the podcast today. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. If you think I forgot something, leave in the comments. If you like this topic and you want to know more about it, leave it in a comment. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.